I passed the CWNA-109 exam on my first attempt after 6 weeks of preparation. While I was doing my prep, I tried looking for any detailed breakdown online or a guide that could show me a prep plan, but I couldn't find anything. So I made this video for you that could be in the same situation like I was back then. That way you have enough information to prepare for your CWNA 109 exam. So let's get into it. Now, one thing is certain, if you're watching this video, you're likely planning to take the CWNA 109 exam yourself, or you're simply curious about what it actually takes to pass it. Well, my goal was straightforward. I wanted to prepare in 6 weeks and pass on the first attempt. And thankfully, I did. Now, in this video, I'll walk you through exactly how I studied, the resources I used, what I thought about the exam, and what I'll do differently if I had to start over today. Now, before we get into the prep plan that worked for me, I want to spend a minute just introducing myself so you have some context about my background. Now, if you're only here for the prep guide, I'll have chapters added below, so feel free to jump straight through to that section where I have all the breakdowns, okay? Now, I'm a network engineer with several years of experience working with enterprise networks and Wi-Fi deployments. Now, I didn't always start as a network engineer. Obviously, I started off with the most foundational tech support IT, and then I grew in to become a network engineer over the years. Now, I have a background in CCNA and as well as Fortinet, and I'm also cybersecurity certified. So I do understand some of the concepts that were used, especially in the enterprise environment. I oversaw many network equipments. So some of the things were familiar, but however, the CWNA goes more in depth for wireless specifically. That's 802.11. So you still have to study consistently and you have to put in work to be ready for the exam. Do not take it for granted, otherwise, you're going to fail. So the passing the exam is not easy, and I'll give the entire breakdown. So let's get into it. There are 5 aspects we're going to focus on in this video. The first is the exam objective. This is where we go through the exact objectives of the exam. I'll show you how this will help you prepare. Next is the study guide you use. The highly recommended study guide. This is what you're going to use beyond anything else. The next is your study plan. This part is very important because no matter what study guide, no matter what nuggets you're given, you do need a plan to study. Test questions. I'll give you tips on where to get the best test questions and what test questions I used, and the key objectives and the exam ready nuggets. I'll just throw in some objectives that you should focus on that would likely come up on the exam and what you can expect on the exam day. We're going to go through this one at a time. And remember, I'll have the chapters in this video so you can skip to any chapter that you want. So first, let's get into the exam objectives. For the exam objective, you can genuinely find this online. Just go to Google and search CWNA 109 objectives. I I cannot stress this enough. You must have this exam objectives, and I'll strongly recommend you print this. If you don't have a printer in your home, go to the office and print this out, or you go to a print shop. You must have this printed out. I'll show you a picture of what my objective printed looked like before the exam. This is where you're going to have an idea. You're going to plan how you're going to especially absorb what you're studying. For example, RF technologies is 15%. WLAN regulations and standards, 20%. Protocols and devices, 20%. Architecture and design concept, 15%. Network security, 10%. Validation and remediation, 20%. So this already tells you the 3 main areas you need to focus on: regulations, protocols, and validation. After that, you want to understand RF technologies, and you also want to be able to design and build 802.11 architecture. And then the least weighted is the network security. Not that it's not important, it's just the least weighted. Print this out. You can genuinely find this online. As you can see, it covers in-depth As you're going through, you're going to be marking everything that you've studied. That way you remember and you move on from it. Because at the end of the day, you cannot force yourself to keep doing something and you're not aware what you've done or what you haven't done. This actually gives you a plan so you structure yourself. Number one, very important, print out the exam objectives. The next conversation is study guide. I cannot stress this enough. Do not focus on anything else online. No matter what resources you're seeing on YouTube or whatever random stuff you get, ignore everything. I cannot highly stress that you need Tom Carpenter's digital study guide. This is worth every penny. Pay for it. I think it only costs like $120 for the guide and 2 exams. Pay for this. I cannot stress it enough. Once you pay for it, you can download this. Once it's downloaded, you're going to have it right here. I have this saved on my computer. Now, I won't show you the entire guide, obviously, because you have to pay for it. Now, the beautiful thing with the guide is you get Tom. Tom Carpenter is the CTO. He oversees the exam. You get his insight at every stage of each chapter. He tries to organize it in a digestible manner. He goes in depth and he tries to expand your knowledge even beyond the exam. It is tremendously a very good digital study guide that I cannot even begin to stress. And as you can see, he also puts his own word at each chapter. And the best part of it all is you get a summary. Every chapter comes with a summary. Now, even on top of the summary, you get even review questions that test your knowledge. Now, as you can see, this is one of the most useful arsenal you can have. And the important thing with this digital study guide is you must have a plan. The biggest thing you must have seen, this goes back to the point of study plan, is it's a lot. 723 pages. You need to come up with a strategy on how you're going to absorb and digest this entire book. Because not only is it that it includes calculation, it includes a lot of images, you need to digest all this. And one thing I will recommend is do 20 pages a day. Now, some days I did 30 pages. Some days I couldn't even do it because I was so exhausted. So you have to make up for it. Like today, I will do 20 pages. Tomorrow, I will do 40 pages. The next day, I wouldn't do any page. Find your balance, but the sweet spot is 20 page a day, and you can expand that for 6 weeks. That's your study plan, the most important thing. Now, once you have your study plan, the next phase you want to move on to is test questions. Now, this is the most important one that people want to know. How do I test myself? Well, remember how I told you pay $120? Well, you get 2 test questions. These 2 test questions, I pretty much saved the final test questions. As you can see, I only did 2 of it. This was before the day before the exam, basically. Try to keep this test question. See, my exam was on the 3rd. I did this on the 3rd. And the day, few days before the exam, I did this as well. This other test question I was doing every week. As you can see, it's almost every week, every week, every week, every week. Do this one weekly to see your progress. You can see when I started, I did only 10 questions and I got like 3 of the 10. Then I progressed to 7. Then I progressed to 32, 63, 68. And then my highest grade was 9.7 over 10. It's very important you get this. And another one that you'd want is exam topics. It's called CWNA-109 exam topics. All right. This one I also used. It costs money, but you can get 10 free questions. But I will recommend, if you really want to test yourself externally, pay for this. This is actually very useful and it's actually information that potentially comes out in the exam. I won't give you spoilers, but just know if you want more test questions to prepare and test yourself, you can get paid for this. I believe it's 70 some dollars for a month. can't remember exactly how much. All right. So, number one, study guide, practice question, extra practice question, 20 pages a day, one practice attempt every week. Okay. Now, we've addressed these factors, and then the main thing that you want to know are the key objectives. What are the key objectives you should focus on? Let's break that down. You'll need to focus on 802.11, specifically 802.11n and 802.11 AC. If you're not familiar with these two, you should go research it ASAP. 802.11n is simply high throughput, I believe. 802.11 AC is very high throughput. That's 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. You would need to understand the phi, the physical layer. There are two important concepts, the MAC layer and the physical layer. You would need to understand how this makes sense to 802.11. If you're coming from a networking background, you're probably familiar with the 7 OSI layer, which goes from application, presentation, session, uh, transport, network, data, and then physical. Well, wireless also has something similar. And for the data layer, which is the Ethernet layer, and the physical layer actually gets a twist. Any case, I don't want to ramble too much, but just know that you must understand what makes the 802.11n or 2.4/5 gigahertz or BG 2.4 different from 802.11n/802.11 AC 5 gigahertz. All right. The next thing you want to know is the overlapping and non-overlapping channels. Make sure you know what are the overlapping channels in 2.4 gigahertz, what are the non-overlapping channels in 2.4 gigahertz, what is the space in between the overlapping and non-overlapping channels. You must know this. All right. Also know the same for the 5 gigahertz as well. You must know this. And you also want to know what are the 5 gigahertz channel that respond to things like you know, uh, broadcast DFS. So that way it switches away from using that channel that could be in used from like weather, airport. You want to know this. Okay. Another important thing is the dBm conversions. You want to understand how many milliwatts is equal to how many dBm. Specifically focus on the 20 dBm part that converts to 100 milliwatts and forth. Understand how they intertwine and understand the rules of threes and tens. The rules of threes and tens are very important. I cannot overestimate that as well. You must understand how you get the milliwatts into dBm and how many milliwatts you get from a loss and a gain. It's important you learn that. And Tom is actually going to go through that in his book or the guide. All right. The final thing I cannot stress enough, absorb the book. Take notes, get a pen and get a piece of paper. Take notes as you're studying the book. As you're going through the study guide. Do not just flip through it or scroll through it. Actually take your time to absorb it. These are the key areas I'm going to give to you without giving too much spoilers or getting into trouble. Try to focus on these areas, and I promise you, you would actually have a much better time with the exam and with these tools that I've given to you. Okay? Do not underestimate the CWNA. Go in prepared. And I believe in 6 weeks, if you follow all these materials that I've given to you, you would be prepared enough. Thanks for watching through the video. I hope this was informative enough. If you have any questions or if there's anything you don't understand, do not hesitate to ask me. I will do my best to answer in the comments. Take care of yourself and good luck with your exam.